very much. Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Barton Stacey in Hampshire. It's about 7 miles to the southeast of Andover. And today we're going to be doing a 4.5 mile circular route from the village out to the, we're going to follow the banks of the river Dever for a while, and then to the little hamlet of Bransbury, through Bransbury Common and then back. It's middle of July in the morning, sun just about to come out, perfect temperature for walking, so do join us. Well, I'm going to start our walk by the church, which is just behind me here, which I shall turn around to show you. And there we are, the Church of All Saints, and it may in fact stand on one of the oldest sites of continuous Christian worship in England. And no one's exactly for sure when the first church was built here, but it must have been before the 10th century. And the original Saxon church was dedicated to St. Victor, a 5th century African bishop, but there's no actual record of when it became All Saints. You can see the church was rebuilt in the 12th century in Norman style, followed by another major rebuilding and additions in the mid 13th century in a sort of Gothic style really. However, in 1635 the church was noted as being in a ruinous state, and in 1848 there was further major refurbishment. And just looking up at the magnificent tower there, that was added in 1510. It's got 6 bells, 5 of which date to 1725. And just looking at the side, this is on the southwest buttress, where you can just make out a little hole there and then a circle, and that's a mass style, and that would have been used well in the days before church clocks, and a stick would have been put in the hole to give an indication of when the next service was. Although I guess the attendance on a cloudy day might have been a bit on the low side. Well, just before we leave the churchyard, I want to show you something that's in the corner, and I'll pan the camera around so you can see what I'm looking at. Now, in 1136 the church was granted to Llantony Abbey, I think that's how you pronounce it, originally in Wales, but in that year the monks, after repeated attacks from the local population, retreated to Gloucester and set up a second abbey there. Now I believe this object here, I can just get around to show you, is the base of a medieval churchyard cross, thought actually to have come from the abbey itself. Just on the top, one of the top corners of the churchyard. I'm fairly certain that's what it is. Well, Barton Stacey used to be a royal manor, and it used to be full of lovely old thatched cottages until there was a major fire in the village in 1792, and all but 10 of the houses were destroyed. In fact, if you look on the gates to the church, they've actually got carved in there the Great Fire of 1792. Well, in the early 20th century, much of the Barton Stacey estate was let to go into ruin, as the estate owner just didn't want to pay his taxes. In the 1930s, the War Office, or Ministry of Defence now, bought a lot of the land, especially to the east of the village, and basically they created some army camps and built a lot of housing there. There's no army camps left, and most of the buildings are now back in private hands, but that's why you've got this slightly strange look to the village. You've got the very sort of older style to the west and south, and then the very modern housing to the east. Well, before we head out into the countryside, just have a little wander through the village, have a nose around. What have we got over here? Rather quaint little post office and stores. I believe there's been a stores at that building for about a couple of 100 years or so. And then just heading south through the sort of main road that goes to the village. Got the village hall there. That was built in 1911, originally as a reading room. And then over onto my left, the Swan Inn, which a 300-year-old coaching inn, grade 2 listed, chalk cob walls. And just continue our little walk through. Some lovely properties down here. The Old Plough, I believe that used to be a pub. In fact, yeah, it still looks as though it's got the metalwork for the pub sign over the top. And then, as I say, majority of these houses, of course, would have been built after the Great Fire. Isn't that lovely? Virginia cottage. And then, so we're not going to go too far down here because the main point of the walk is to go and investigate along by the river and into the onto the common. And this, I think this is the old vicarage, almost like a Georgian style to it, isn't it? Oh, isn't that lovely, with the wisteria still out on the side of that house. Right, we're going to go down this little footpath that goes along the side of the church. We're going to make our way out into the countryside. Now, the name Barton Stacey gets its name from, well, the Barton bit. You get burr from barley and ton from place, so that's Anglo-Saxon. And in 1206, the estate was owned by a chap called Sir Roggo de Stacey, so that's where the Stacey comes from. But it certainly is a pretty little village. Right, let's kick on into the countryside. We're now making our way northwest towards the River Deva. I'm just going to follow a little road to get there. And just by me here, this fantastic thatched wall. Isn't that brilliant? And the property behind it, which unfortunately we can't see, is called Church Farm House, which is a 15th century building with 18th century alterations. It's listed, it's one of 33 listed buildings in the parish. I think there's 24 in the village alone. But I did see that it was for sale in 2017 for well over 2 million. Well, this really is quite pretty. It's your quintessential sort of English countryside lane. Look at the church tower in the background and the high banks of hawthorn and blackthorn either side. If I pan round, this is looking into Deva Valley and the sheep grazing away, and the far distance you can see some water, and that's actually a trout fishery. And then there's some marvellous oak trees as well. The sun beginning to come out, and it's going to be a beautiful day later on. Well, I'm enjoying this little meander along this quite pretty little country lane. I can hear the River Deva, which is just on my right. I can only get glimpses at the moment. We'll see it later on, but actually just let me show you what I'm looking at on my left. Beautiful fields of I think that's barley over there, and the year is flowing by. Won't be long before the harvest comes. But, oh, it's the sun really is making itself known now. It's quite beautiful. Going back to the River Deva, it eventually joins up with, well, its source is at Winchester, and then it sort of flows west and then south, and then joins up with the River Test at Wherwell, where I've actually done a video. But it's not a huge river. In fact, for many years it really didn't even have a name as such. It was called Northbrook, something like that. Oh wow, look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Now, this is Bransbury Mill, just on the outskirts of the hamlet. I believe it's the oldest property in Bransbury. There's certainly been a mill here since the Domesday Book. Look at the lilies there. Oh, this is quite exquisite. And that presumably, maybe the wheel as such was down there. Look at that little door there. Isn't that wonderful? Just making way to Bransbury Bridge. We won't go into Bransbury. It's a very small hamlet, something like 22 houses centred around an old manor that was built in 1791, I think. But we'll have a quick look at the river over the bridge, and you can see it looks as though it gets joined. Either I've been following just a part of the river, or it joins up with another stream. I'll have to look up on the map, but that really is crystal clear down there now. I find it quite beautiful. And what a time to come, you know, in the summer, where you get the reflection of the sunlight off the water, and so peaceful. And I don't know what it's like on the other side. A little bit darker, and but yeah, equally as pretty though. So we're now going to go into Bransbury Common, which again it sort of follows the line of the river, heading in a sort of southerly direction now. So onto the common. It was designated one of these special, or sites of special scientific interest back in the 1980s, and it's 392 acres in total. And it, well, I've got woodland on one side, and then sort of fields on the other. And the great thing is, I can now let Logan off the lead for a bit. Gosh, look at all these butterflies. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, I think is that a peacock there? And there's a red admiral. I don't know if that's, I'll see if I can get some photos. This looks like butterfly heaven here, with all these wild flowers. Plenty of the white, and there's a few brown meadows, but oh, look at that. Trying to get my camera out of the way. Such beautiful colours. And then there's one over there. I don't know what that is. It's sort of orange with sort of tattered wings. I'll have to identify that one when I get home. But oh, the way they really are catching the sunlight. Amazing. I don't think I've seen so many in one place. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, it is so peaceful in here, and a real haven for wildlife. We've just been looking at or watching a kestrel flying about. What I love about this place, so I'm used to the New Forest, where trees tend to be oak, beech and pine, but there's much more of a variety here. And just coming through this well, lovely little shady part of the walk, and a lot of hazel here as well. I dare say a few walking sticks will be able to be made out of some of these along here in the future. And just through, probably can't see at the moment, but lots of sort of cool wetland vegetation, reeds and what have you, because, well, in fact, you can just see the gate that we're coming up to, which is going to take us onto the what's basically a floodplain of the river. Oh, there's a lovely view to the west. There's this whole area just set aside for wildflowers, and the river is out there somewhere. Well, we will see it shortly. In the far distance, the woodland is the Harewood Forest, which is the largest amount of woodland in Hampshire outside of the New Forest. Here we are, finally a real close-up of the River Deva at this ford here. It is stunning, it really is. Well, it is absolutely teeming with little fish. There's no point me trying to take a photo because it probably won't come out, but I dare say if I stayed around here long enough I'd probably get a kingfisher. Something I've never managed to get a photograph of, but it's having the patience. But, oh, beautiful. I say this must be an ancient ford, and the river here will join up with the River Test not too far downstream, but quite stunning. Come on then. Well, we'll say goodbye to the River Deva. I think Logan enjoyed his little paddle there. So we're now going to start heading east, show you where we're going, and we're going to be following a dead straight tree-lined path that actually is the remains of a Roman road that went from I think it was Winchester to Marlborough. We're going to get some great views on either side as we go uphill. This is perfect, this shade from the sun through here. It's just what the doctor ordered. And ooh, what's that through there? Ah, I think that's one of these is it geocache or geocache? It's where folk use a global position system or GPS receiver to seek out containers at specific locations marked by coordinates all over the world. And they are just normally like this, small waterproof containers, and it'll have a logbook and a pencil in there. And I think basically you just have to sign a logbook with your code and then replace it where you found it. Well, it is getting hot now. We've just made our way across this field of wheat. I think it was Theresa May, the former Prime Minister, didn't she say that one of her fantasies was running through a field of wheat completely naked? I won't be partaking in that. But there's some beautiful views here. Again, this is looking over to the west. And I just pan round. And in the very far distance, I don't know if you can make out, I'll try and get a close-up photograph. That's the Chilbolton Observatory, and I talked about that in the werewolf video. But now, from where I am now, normally I can head across a field back to the village, but there's a red flag flying, and this particular part of the land is owned by the army, and from time to time they use it as a firing range. When the red flag's flying, you can't walk across it. So we're going to divert, follow the road back. It's not too much further to go. We should get some super views anyway. In fact, just looking around, just keeping an eye out where the sun is, but just up on the hill there, glinting away, there's a field of opium poppies. See if we can get a bit closer to that. Well, I've just made my way to probably the highest point of the walk, because there's a trig point just by me, and just bumped into this lovely gentleman that's sitting enjoying the sunshine.
Enjoying the sun, that's it. Yeah,
your name was, sir?
Jed.
Jed, yeah. And now you were telling me earlier you used to be in the army,
yeah, exactly,
and
yeah.
You're here sort of keeping an eye out because the range is open today.
Well, the range is open, and also there's a parachute jump a bit later into the field, so it's just the vicinity of the field. Yeah. That's all it is, you know.
And how often do they tend to use it?
Well, the parachute jumps are probably about once a month, so it's not too often, maybe twice.
Yeah.
With the fiery range, they can be firing on there maybe 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh, crumbs!
But it's been closed down a little bit lately because of the pandemic and lockdown. They haven't been using it as much, you know.
And is it basically rifles and pistols?
Rifles and pistols, yeah. But they've got some other armaments they use that can occasionally go into the field. So it's just making sure people don't wander into the field. And
sure. Yeah. Oh well. Oh, it's lovely. Oh, well, I shall let you carry on then.
Try and enjoy the sun and keep an eye out.
That's right. All right.
Enjoy the rest of your walk.
Nice to have met you.
Yeah.
All right. Lovely chap. And here is the aforementioned trig point. And well, being on army land, it's been whitewashed. But from here, wow, there are some absolutely stunning views across. I'll put some photographs up over the hedge. And we're just now going to head back into the village, and that'll be the end of our walk. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and like, and do make a comment. And as I always say, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hopefully then you'll be able to join us for another walk in the countryside sometime in the future. We've had an absolutely gorgeous walk today. The weather's been absolutely smashing. Lovely peaceful countryside. You had a nice little paddle in the river, didn't you? So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio.